Yes. Okay, so I'm back to getting the camera working, fortunately. So this is chapter 15 of the Lavellan. If we remember, they were going to go and get Darwin back from Eric, who had stolen him. And to do that, they had to at least pretend to swap Taurus and the Lavellan for Darwin. So let's see what happens next. The visitors slept downstairs that evening, although Chris went out just before 8 o'clock, and I didn't see him again until the following morning. George and Carol had joked about him probably preferring the barn to sleep in, but I wasn't sure if that was true. The following morning we had to get Taurus up the hill and into the lorry. The lorry had been parked much further up the track, where it met the main road, as there was no chance of turning around at the end of our track. Walking Taurus was interesting. Mum had put a bridle on him, a bit like the ones used when animals were being shown off at fairs. Taurus had a very ploddy, easygoing nature, so it wasn't too hard. The difficulty came when he would take an interest in something at the side of the road, like a tempting bit of grass. Carol was holding a disgusting-looking bunch of seaweed in one hand, Taurus's favourite treat, apparently, and would wave it in front of him every time he got distracted. When we finally reached the lorry, Carol allowed Taurus to gobble up the seaweed, which he did with some vivacity. She then took some gloves out of her pocket, which looked like they were made from tiny metal links, and turned to me to explain. Taurus's friend is in the lorry. He's really friendly, but can't always help his instincts, she said, but I was none the wiser. What are his instincts? I asked. To drown people, she said simply. But don't worry, these gloves mean I can touch him without being in danger. I'm just saying that, unless you wear iron gloves like these, it's probably best to stay away from him. Well, there was no arguing with that. I didn't own any iron gloves, so I would be staying well away from whatever creature was lurking within that lorry. I backed off a little as George opened the door, but I could still peer inside from behind Taurus. The lorry was dark inside. There were gaps in the sides of the vehicle where the light shone through, but it didn't seem to get very far. I could hear a stomping of hooves and a snorting sound that sounded like a horse. Taurus walked enthusiastically up the ramp when he heard this, and George closed the door. Just before the door was shut, I jumped in surprise as I saw two red glints stare straight at me. It's okay, Carol grinned. He's actually very gentle, most of the time. He just can't help what he is. I didn't want to ask what he was. I'm not sure I really wanted to know. I went back to the house to check on the Lavellan. It was waiting for me, I'm sure it was. At least it was waiting by the door when I got back, and it crawled up my leg, so I had to hold it in my arms. I'm sorry, I spoke gently, but you'll have to go in an animal carrier. I couldn't bear the thought of the animal getting lost a long way from its home. Mum had found another animal carrier, one which hadn't been strong enough for Sheba, which was a bit more comfortable than the last one. The Lavellan splayed its legs to begin with, so it wouldn't fit through the door, but with a bit of gentle encouragement, he was soon safely in the carrier. Mum, Chris and I walked up to the car with Sheba following, her tail flicking with excitement as she might be able to cause some mischief. I sat in front with Mum while Chris sat in the back. I had no idea how long it would take to get to Eric's house, and I didn't know if the police would stop us for making an unnecessary journey. Mum had assured me that the ID badges each of the adults had would mean our journey would be mostly uninterrupted. But we didn't see any police anyway. In fact, we didn't see anybody on the roads, except for the lorry, which we quickly caught up with. So I began hoping for some answers about a few things. You don't have any pets, then? No, I don't like keeping pets, Chris replied, but refused to say much more. His nose twitched, and his eyes were staring out the window, watching the darting gorse bushes. It's just... I paused, unsure how best to continue. The others all have their animals, and Chris doesn't need an animal, Mum interrupted me, but when I started asking again, she just shook her head and held up her hand. I wasn't going to get any information. Yet. Frustrating adults. Half an hour later, we turned off from the main road, down a lane which said private property on a sign at the entrance. Those sort of signs always irritate me at the best of times, and I wasn't at all surprised that Eric would be that sort of person. The drive was long and ended in a large stone house with enough room in the parking space before it for our car, the lorry, and the 2 jeeps that were already parked. The lorry was turned around and Mum turned the car so it was facing the exit, no doubt to make a quicker escape when needed. I clutched the animal carrier, feeling sick with responsibility, and begun to wish I had stayed at the cottage instead. Come on, darling, Mum whispered and opened the car door. I continued to cling on to the Lavellan, but my legs felt like they might collapse beneath me, so I wasn't sure how much use I was actually going to be. I turned back to the car, hoping to get some support that there were more people, more adults. But I couldn't see Chris anywhere. He had been in the back of the car when we pulled up, but he wasn't there anymore. There was just a pile of fur where he had been sitting. Okay, so that is the end of chapter 15. Now we're actually coming very, very close to the end of the story. I don't think there'll be more than 3 or 4 chapters left. But I will do another chapter for tomorrow, but not Friday and not Monday. And we'll come back to it on Tuesday. So we'll get chapter 16 tomorrow, chapter 17 next Tuesday. Okie dokie, now comprehension time. Let's start with vocabulary Victor today. Now, remember when you're answering these vocabulary questions, the important thing to do is to have a clever guess by reading around the word in a sentence. So if it's a word that you don't know, that's fantastic. That's really, really what I'm wanting. But if you're not sure, don't ask for help. Don't get your mum or your dad to tell you what it means, because I'm sorry, but you just won't learn like that. You want to have a look at the words in the sentence and have a clever guess. Then when you've done that and you've submitted your work, there is no harm in going onto the online dictionary and having a look at it there. It's a really good website, that one. I think it's called, well, I search in Google for Kids Online Dictionary and it's like the first one that comes up, and it's really, really handy. Okay, so Rex Retriever. No, we were going to do vocabulary. That's what I just spent ages talking about. Oh gosh. Right, vocabulary Victor. What do you think the word veracity means? So I'll read you the sentence and I want you to think about what the word veracity means. When we finally reached the lorry, Carol allowed Taurus to gobble up the seaweed, which he did with some veracity. Now you spell it V-O-R-A-C-I-T-Y. Okay, so that's the number 1 question. The next question, influence Iggy. Let me think. What do you think is in the lorry? Before Taurus went into the lorry, what other creature do you think is in there? So there's lots and lots of clues in the text. I know it's a creature that you have heard of and you know. So what do you think it is? And the last one, predicting Pip. Very simply, what do you think is going to happen next? Okay, now, up until now, I've not actually been setting you reading books. Starting from next week, I will be setting you, I hope, if I can figure out how to do this, I will be setting you each a book to read and a task to do with it. The important thing is, guys, you keep reading. Now, I've asked you to do some silent reading, but obviously I have no way of making sure that you're doing that. So that's why we're going to start with this other reading activity next week. So I will leave it at that for today. I hope you have a terrific day. It's another lovely day outside. So try and make sure you get outside in the garden or for a walk or something, because it's a beautiful day, and I will see you tomorrow. Oh, don't forget maths checkup tomorrow on Sumdog. I would love everybody to do it. You do not need your parents there while you're doing it. In fact, actually, I'd rather they weren't, because what I want to know is what you can do yourself. It's not an end of topic assessment. The only reason we're doing this is so I know what I need to teach you next week. Because obviously if we were at school, I would be assessing you the whole time, like you know. But obviously I can't do that here. So I really, really want to know where the gaps are and what I need to do before we go on to change and such like. Okie dokie, right. I will see you then. Bye-bye for now.